Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. President Donald Trump's legal fight over tariffs is now headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Two lower federal courts ruled Trump exceeded his authority by unilaterally imposing sweeping tariffs on countries like China and Brazil. Siston-Wapton fabric designer Denise Hill in South Dakota is among those watching the court decisions closely. She's had to raise prices to accommodate higher costs. We'll talk with Native business owners and leaders about navigating the shifting economic landscape right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Alaska's Office of Children's Services is defending its practices in a court case that began in August. A national organization brought the class action lawsuit, hoping it can force court-mandated reforms to a system they say is failing kids and violating the Indian Child Welfare Act. About 2/3 of children in out-of-home care in the state are Alaska Native. Alaska Public Media's Rachel Cassandra has more.
When former foster youth Matthew Vandenberg took the stand on the first day of the federal trial, he told the judge about a foster placement he and other foster youth called the Ramen House. He recounted his testimony in an interview.
The people there would give you 2 ramen packs a day, and if you ate them, say, in the morning, you would have to wait until the next day to eat again. I lost over 30 pounds being at that foster home.
OCS is supposed to visit kids in their care monthly, but Marcia Lowry says those monthly visits in Alaska just aren't happening. She's an attorney and director of a national nonprofit, A Better Childhood, that brings lawsuits against states to push for foster care reforms.
How else can you know whether a child is safe when you put a child in a foster home?
Lowry says that on many federal measures, Alaska's foster care system ranks among the worst in the country.
Alaska is one of the few places that I know of that hires workers who don't have college degrees.
Lowry says lawsuits like this can be an effective way to force system reforms. She says when they sued New Jersey in 1999, their system was one of the worst in the country. Now it's one of the best. Alaska's foster care system has long been plagued with serious problems. In 2018, a law required reforms meant to reduce caseloads and staff turnover. The final audit released this year showed that by most measures, OCS hasn't made meaningful progress. The Office of Children's Services declined an interview for this story, but in her testimony, OCS Director Kim Gui consistently pointed out that her office is just one piece of Alaska's child welfare system. The federal trial is slated to wrap up September 10th. In Anchorage, I'm Rachel Cassandra.
Recently, we brought you a story about a New Zealand man who was reunited with his Indigenous family in Canada after 50 years. He was part of Canada's 60 Scoop, and as Dan Karpenchuk reports, others who were taken away want help finding their biological relatives.
Jonathan Hooker of New Zealand recently returned to Manitoba and met his biological mother and other family members. He had been searching for them for years. He had been taken from them when he was only a few months old. Catherine Strongwind had a similar story. Only a year old when she was removed from her family in Winnipeg in 1973, she lived with a non-Indigenous family in Winnipeg. After years of searching, she eventually found her biological siblings and extended family. Strongwind and Hooker are among the estimated 20,000 Indigenous children who were taken from their families between the 1950s and 1980s. Many of those children were placed in non-Indigenous homes across Canada and around the globe. It was a plan of forced assimilation of Native children into white culture. University of Winnipeg history professor Karen Froman says most of the children didn't know about their Indigenous roots.
A lot of these adoptees are learning about their true heritage later in life, and a lot of them were lied to. They were told they were either, French or Italian, right, to explain why they were a little bit brown.
Froman says the 60 Scoop was part government policy and part misunderstanding. She says rather than address social problems, it was easier for governments to remove the children. Advocates say as many as 3,000 Indigenous children were sent out of Canada and around the world. They say there must be more support so every one of those children can return home and meet with their families and communities. For National Native News, I'm Dan Karpenchuk.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Support by AARP. AARP creates and connects people to unique tools and programs, helps conserve personal resources, and tackles issues that matter most to individuals, families, and communities. More at aarp.org.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Some Native business owners are starting to feel the effects of President Donald Trump's foreign trade policy. Later this hour, we'll hear from Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate citizen Denise Hill, who sells fabric customers use to sew ribbon skirts and other projects. She's seen the prices of her raw materials jump in the past month and is forced to pass that cost on to customers. A Pew Research Center survey in August finds more than 60% of those asked disapprove of the higher tariffs on goods. 2 Blackfeet Nation citizens filed a lawsuit against the federal government, alleging that the administration is violating tribal treaty rights. We'll hear from a plaintiff in that lawsuit today. We're talking about challenges and potential benefits of current foreign trade policy for Native businesses. We also want to hear from you. Are you a Native business owner or a Native consumer concerned about how tariffs impact your finances? You can join us with a comment or question by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's now meet today's guests. Joining us from Helena, Montana is Senator Susan Weber. She represents Montana's 8th Senate District. She is Blackfeet. Senator Weber, hello, good morning, and welcome back to Native America Calling.
Good morning.
Joining us from Chapel Hill, North Carolina is Dr. Larry Chavis. He is an economist and business school professor. He is Lumbee. Larry, hello, and welcome back to you as well.
Hi, good to be with you all.
Joining us from Sisseton, South Dakota is Denise Hill. She is the owner of the Family Affair Fabric Store. She is Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate. Denise, hello and welcome to Native America Calling.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, Denise. And joining us from Royal Oak, Michigan, we have Jeff St. Louis. He is the founder and CEO of Native Purchasing Group, and he's a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Band of Chippewa Indians. Jeff, welcome to Native America Calling. It's great to have you on the show as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Well, let's get this conversation started. Senator Weber, I'd like to begin with you because you and a Blackfeet farmer have filed a lawsuit against the federal government alleging that tariffs violate the U.S. Constitution and tribal treaty rights. This is interesting. How did you get involved in this legal fight to challenge the presidential administration on its economic policy?
Well, we got involved because it was basically hurting the initial tariffs. We have the Blackfeet is on the border of Canada, Alberta, actually, and we have 3 sister tribes up north, and then we're the ones of the Blackfoot Confederacy that's in the south of the border. And so I was getting concerns. People were calling me regarding how the tariffs were affecting our trade, our traditional, buying and equipment. Products from Canada. We didn't have to have duties or anything before that, and then all of a sudden it started to impact us. And so just based on the Constitution, the Commerce Clause that says, tribes are exempt, and it's only Congress that can enter into tariffs with foreign countries, the states, and tribal nations.
Okay, now, I'm sorry, go ahead, Senator Weber, please.
No. And then the Jay Treaty opens that reaffirms that. And there has been no, I guess, lawsuits or any kind of changes in the Jay Treaty since it was implemented in the 1880s. So I think it was earlier than that. But so there has been, it's always stood. And so that's what we base the lawsuit on.
Well, let's talk more about the Jay Treaty because actually dates back to the Revolutionary War era, late 1700s, the U.S. and Great Britain. How exactly do these tariffs violate the treaty rights, such as what was described during the signing of the Jay Treaty? Geez, that was 250 years ago.
Yeah, and it's never been questioned in the court of law since then. So it still stands in effect. I know that, 250 years, whatever, it still applies. We're a nation of laws, and that applies. So that's where we stand. We do have a hearing in the Ninth Circuit Court in Seattle on September 17th to, along with California and a couple other states, we're the only ones that are native and they'll probably all go before the Supreme Court. So it will be upheld in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Now, the Jay Treaty, it recognized the rights of Native Americans to freely cross over the U.S.-Canadian border. And it sounds like that's something that Blackfeet citizens, both in the U.S. and in Canada, do on a regular basis, cross back and forth.
Oh, we do. Often. I do. I have relatives up north. We're all related. The three up north, the Kainai, the Siksika, the Piikani, and then us, the Amskapi Piikani, or Blackfeet in the south. So we have continued that connection with Canada and the purchasing and relying on the Jay Treaty.
Now, it's stipulated that American Indians were not to pay duties or taxes on their own goods when crossing the border. Senator Weber, have you ever had to pay taxes or duties on any products you purchased in Canada coming back into the U.S.?
No, I've never have.
Okay. But that's the basis of this lawsuit now. I'm sorry. There's a farmer, right? This gentleman went to Canada to buy a part for his tractor. He came back and was hit with the duty. Is that right?
Yes. After the Trump tariffs went into effect, and that's when I was in session, the 69th Montana legislative session, and I was getting all these calls, and he was one. We have a lot of tribal members that rely on tourism. Their little companies or their little campgrounds were being affected because Canadians were not coming down because of the tariffs. And so their businesses were hurt, especially for people that have seasonal businesses like these little campgrounds and cultural tourism. So that's why we started this. That's the whole crux of it, is that we were being hurt by these tariffs.
Okay. Senator Weber, can you give us any updates in terms of where this suit is headed right now? What do you hope the lawsuit accomplishes? And could it perhaps set a precedent for Indigenous treaty rights and businesses going forward?
Well, like I said, we have a hearing on September 17th in the Ninth District Court, or Ninth Circuit Court, I guess, in Seattle. And right after us is the state of California. But it looks like from my legal team was that all four cases will be going to the Supreme Court. They tried to put us in, the CIT, the Court of International Trade, and but we're not international. We're not foreign. We are domestic, and we're the only tribe. So they couldn't put us in there. And so we fought that to be put back into the Ninth Circuit. And so that's where we stand right now. But according to my attorney and all of those people that know the law inside and out, was that it looks like all four of them will be going to the Supreme Court for final decision.
Senator Weber, President Trump won 58% of the state of Montana last year in the election. This tariff policy, is it resonating with other voters there in the state, perhaps outside of Indian country?
Yes, it is. Actually, the Farmers Union, Montana Farmers Union, is supporting the lawsuit because it's affecting them. From going, a lot of our hay, a lot of our grain products since we're so close to Canada, it's a lot cheaper to deal with Canada than to go anywhere else in the United States. So that was our main trade partner, was Canada. And so I represent a lot of farmers in Senate District 8. And so they jumped on it when they had heard that we had filed this lawsuit, and they're behind us 100%.
Senator Weber, are there other products that Blackfeet citizens purchase in Canada and bring back across the border other than agricultural equipment and supplies? Do people go up there for other types of items? I don't know, maybe clothing or sporting goods?
Yes.
Yeah? What types of things?
Of course, we still do the giveaways. So we purchase a lot of blankets, Hudson Bays, Pendletons, just cheaper up there. And the American dollar is worth more than the Canadian dollar. And so it more bang for the buck. And we do, we just go up there to eat, go up there for entertainment. We go back and forth for ceremony. There's a lot of things that we have. One of the things that the Blackfeet are developing right now is an inland port. So this kind of put a damper on that activity to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Senator Susan Weber joining us from Helena, Montana, kicking off our discussion today. As states along the Colorado River get ready to draft a new plan next year on how to use the river's shrinking water supply, tribes are making sure they're at the table and ready to protect this important resource. On the next Native America Calling, we'll discuss how tribes are using their jurisdiction and legal strategies to ensure their voices are heard.
My name is Tammy, and I'm a member of the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. Smoking gave me heart disease. I used to think of cigarette smoking as something that only affected me. Then at just 44 years old, I had to look into my mom's eyes on the way into emergency heart surgery and tell her, "Mommy, I promise I won't make you bury me." My tip is, think about the people in your life who love you. They go through the pain too, maybe even more than you do.
The people you love are worth quitting for. You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the CDC.
Thank you for listening to Native America Calling. We're assessing President Trump's tariffs and what they mean for Native business owners. We also want to hear from you today, our listeners. What have you noticed with the tariffs? Has the increased cost of goods posed problems for you or your family or your community? Do you notice positive changes, like people more focused on buying American-made goods? You can join us with a comment or question. Just call 1-800-996-2848. That number again is 1-800-996-2848. Let's get some calls going, or you can also just leave a comment on our website and social media forums such as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We have Senator Susan Weber on the line right now. She represents Montana's 8th Senate District. And Senator Weber, before break, you mentioned a port, I believe a port of entry there on the Blackfeet tribal lands that you were bringing into the discussion here. Please go ahead and continue your thoughts.
Okay. as I started to say, was that the Blackfeet are looking to develop a inland port of entry to open basically businesses going back and forth using. We have two port of entries on the Canadian border that border the Blackfeet and Canada. So we were looking to develop that. You know, we don't rely on casino. We don't have casino money. We don't have that amount of people to support a casino. But we were looking at other avenues, and this was one of them before the tariffs, during the Biden administration. And now we are kind of stalled. We're just kind of a wait and see. And that would help us, help our economy on this reservation. So that's basically what we were trying to do. So now that's stalled out until something happens. Hopefully this lawsuit will happen.
All right. We've already got a caller on the line. This is Michael, who is listening in Jemez Pueblo, New Mexico on radio station KUNM. Hello, Michael. You're on the air.
Hey, yeah, long time no talk to you. But
yeah,
I was listening to this conversation, and she said they were thrown into international court system. I think they should have stayed in there. It would have been an interesting test case for the rest of Native America to see how this gone, because in my mind they're recognizing us as a sovereign nation. We're always talking about nation to nation when we talk about DC, and this was even better, bigger and better. The world recognizing indigenous Americans as sovereigns, and it would have been sovereign to sovereign, and it would have opened up a whole new venue, a whole new aspect of looking at the tribes in America.
Michael, thank you for calling. Great take there. And Senator Weber, if you could respond to Michael listening in Jemez Pueblo, questions about why not keeping the issue in international court, and potentially just what does this lawsuit mean for tribal sovereignty in general? Please respond.
Okay. We looked at that, but we were focusing on the issue of being foreign and not so much as that we're not foreign. This is our country. You know, we're looking at tribal sovereignty from that respect. And so, you know, and then to look at us as foreign. I know during the initial Trump, and when he first second got in there, and then he was looking at the immigration, that they were talking about the tribes being that they didn't have the natural born status or native born status, and we didn't want to go there. We just wanted to look at us being a domestic. This is our country, so we was looking at our sovereignty from that respect. But this is fantastic. We had not thought of that, to stay in that court, but it may go back there. It just all depends on what the Ninth Circuit Court says. It may go back there. We don't know until the 17th, and or probably a week after that when their decision comes down. So we still have some time, depending on what their decisions are.
All right. Thank you, Senator Weber. And we will be following this story closely. Hearing coming up next week in Seattle, and possibly a decision later on this month. So phone lines are open for anyone else who would like to join the conversation. Get in now. We got the phone lines open. You can get your call right through 1-800-996-2848. Let's bring Dr. Larry Chavis into our conversation now. He is an economist and business school professor. And Larry, what are some indicators right now for how these recently imposed tariffs are affecting the U.S. economy? Are there benefits? Are there drawbacks? What's really happening right now? What does the data show us?
Sure. Excuse me there. I'll add one bit of data just to support what Senator Weber was saying. Is in the first quarter, Montana's economy shrank by over 4%, and that was the third largest drop by any state And if we look at the top 5 states by proportion of American Indian population, Alaska, Oklahoma, New Mexico, South Dakota, and Montana, they decreased on average by 2.5% their economy strength compared to 1% for the average state. So there certainly is a strong effect in Indian country.
Okay, now the administration recently exempted a range of products, and these are products that cannot be made or grown in the United States. So those products that come in that we can't provide for ourselves, those are exempt from tariffs. What effect might that have, Larry?
I mean, that's certainly helpful. Any place that we have a relief in tariffs will benefit American industry, American consumers. Economists, by and large, agree that tariffs, particularly the way they've been implemented in a somewhat random fashion, really hurt the economy. They both raise input prices to industry, and then they raise prices to consumers, and then consumers consume less. And I know a later panelist will talk about the apparel industry, and Morningstar identifies that as one of the toughest hit industries. So that is a really real feeling, both having higher input costs and lower consumer demand.
Okay. Now, the other side of that argument is that tariffs encourage U.S. consumers to buy more American-made goods. Are we seeing any indicators that that's happening, or that we're seeing any sort of a lower reliance on global trade?
There are our economy is so global. Right? There are so few things that are just made in any one place, and can be a strength of the economy, that we're having for economists, we want places that have an advantage, that are more efficient to produce the things they're best at. One indicator that the tariffs are not having the desired effect is that even though the tariffs were supposed to help American manufacturing is actually shedding jobs. That the impact of increased import prices is really having an impact on manufacturing, increasing their cost, and they're lowering manufacturing employment.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Let's hear now from a native small business owner. We have Denise Hill on the line. She's the owner of the Family Affair Fabric Store, and she is in Sisseton, South Dakota. Denise, thank you again for joining the show, and tell us more. How is a fabric store there in your hometown, Sisseton, South Dakota? How's it being impacted by this foreign trade policy we're talking about today? And when did you notice prices for what you are selling start to change?
Hi. Well, actually, we right away, right in the beginning of the year, we started getting letters from our companies saying that, expect this change to come. And so we started preparing for that. And good thing that we are a small business, and we do have, a lot of bolts of stuff that our community uses a lot of. We have that on hand, but now throughout the year, that inventory is starting to get depleted, and we're having to bring in the newer stuff. And now the stuff that's going out on the shelf is, anywhere from 60 cents to $2 more per yard. And it's just horrible, to have to turn that over to the customers, but, it's coming.
Denise, I'm looking at your website right now, familyaffaircreations.com. Beautiful products and merchandise available to sell. Well, tell us more about some of these products that you have to purchase now and that are subject to these tariffs, some of these supplies and other materials that go into people's sewing and beading projects.
Well, actually, the very first thing, we've recently started doing business with First Trend up in Canada, and we got a letter from them stating, that they're going to be pausing all shipments to the U.S. while they finalize a solution to continue offering our exclusive indigenous fabric collections across the country. So the tariffs have done that. We put in a quick order to first trend before this August 29th deadline, and we're not certain. With this administration, we're just uncertain. There's so much uncertainty in the products that we're getting. And not only the fabric, but then we also had email from a bead company. They're going up 25% in rhinestones. Although we're a fabric store, we're a small community, and we just want to supply the basics that people run out of. So we have a few beads in our store also, and we have a local lady that that does do her sole business is beadwork, and she has a lot of uncertainty also.
Denise, is there any indication right now that your customers just aren't going to be able to pay these higher costs and you're just going to see a dramatic decrease in sales?
We as Native people, we want to support other Native people also. The fabrics that we get in, we try to focus on, indigenous made. We want to support those artists. And so as much as I hate to pay, 60 cents extra a yard, if it's beautiful, if it's indigenous made, and if that fabric is quality, I'm going to buy it, just myself as a creator, so we adjust.
Are there any American suppliers for any of these materials or fabrics that you're selling that could offset what you have to pay for if you import goods from Canada now?
You know what? We ordered some Native American, some Native prints, and it was in the, our company was in the United States. But when we got our shipment, it was, you've seen the Chinese, Japanese, whatever, labeling, so actually where does everything come from?
Right. Well, tell us more about your store and when did you open it and how has business been since the time you first started and what does it mean to the community to have this business there locally?
Oh my goodness. It's, we have a small building. We rent a small building, and we opened in March of 23, and our community is not just Native; it's non-Native also. So we supply. We have to keep a balance between the Native products and the non-Native items that people in our community need. And to have these small items on hand for local people is a goal that I wanted to provide to the community, because our nearest big store is 45 miles away, or we have to go north to Fargo, hour and a half away. It's so nice to be able to walk into a store, have quality fabrics, and have it right at your fingertips. Sometimes you order it offline and then you're kind of leery. It's a hit and miss. This way you can see, feel, touch it, and know that you're getting high quality.
Right. Yeah. My wife sews as well. She says the exact same thing, Denise. You got to touch it. You got to hold. You just never know when
Yep.
you look online. Yeah. We've got about a minute and a half before we have to take another break. But I want to bring Larry back into the conversation because, Larry, now we've heard from a native small business owner. We've heard from Denise Hill at Family Affair Fabric Store, and help put this all into perspective here. I mean, going forward, what do you see as the impact here for Native and minority-owned businesses like what Denise has going on up in Siston, South Dakota?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, and small businesses are the core of our economy. Right? We talk a lot about big businesses, but it's really the most job creation is from small businesses, and we rely on that. The average household is estimates of the impact of tariffs about $2,000 a household. And that's a lot less purchasing from small businesses. Small businesses are getting it both on the demand side from people having less income and also getting hit by the tariffs on the input side of the cost of doing business. So it's a tough situation to be in. And it could go away quickly. I mean, it's the uncertainty that Denise about as well. Like, it's hard to invest under uncertainty. It's hard to grow your business and think about bringing in, expanding your store, expanding your product line when you don't know what things are going to cost in the future.
Phone number is 1-800-996-2848. Let's get some more callers on the line. Are you a small business owner? Are you a native consumer? Maybe you make crafts and you're concerned about the cost for your fabrics or the beads that you use to do your projects. Let us know. 1-800-99-NATIVE. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The annual 2025 Indian Nations Conservation Alliance National Conference happens October 14th in Las Vegas. This 3-day gathering of tribal leaders, professionals, youth, and community members unites voices and action around conservation, innovation, and indigenous stewardship of Indian lands and resources. The Indian National Finals Rodeo will be there too. Info and registration at inca-tcd.org. Inca supports this show.
You're listening to Native America Calling. There's still plenty of time if you would like to join our conversation today about tariffs and the effect they're having on the country's economy and Native business owners. Join us. Call 1-800-996-2848. Share a question, share a comment, share a thought. 1-800-99-NATIVE. Our next guest, Jeff St. Louis, joins us now from Royal Oak, Michigan, where he is the founder and CEO of Native Purchasing Group. And Jeff, we're hearing a lot today. We're hearing from a small business owner in Siston, South Dakota. We're hearing from a legislator in Montana. We're hearing from a business school professor. What are you hearing, and what are tariffs impacting the businesses that you work with and the business owners that you talk to? What are they telling you? What are their concerns?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me on today. So what Native Purchasing Group is we are a GPO, which is a group purchasing organization. And what we do is we're an entity that we leverage the purchasing power of all of our members, so all of our tribal members, and we group that purchasing power, and then we negotiate with suppliers for discounted pricing. So we have over 3,400 vendors that we work with, and that totals out to over 4 million products. So in the world of the tariffs, what's happening now is the majority of the purchasing from a tribe, typically it will come from the medical side of it, whether it be the clinics or the dental or the optical. And if you're using a big distributor, they have their own private label brands, and their private label brands, they don't have a manufacturing facility outside their distribution. They private label their brands from overseas. So we've been warned through all the distributors that you better start contacting your members because the increases are coming and the tariffs are going to be hitting us soon. So it's been It's been very stressful on the fact from the fact of the members because well, they're just kind of waiting for it to get hit, and we've gone through these ups and downs where okay, there's going to be 25%, 50% tariffs, and then there's going to be a pause, and there's 50%, 25%, then there's going to be a pause. So it's just kind of like wearing a blindfold and hitting the pinata. They just don't know when it's going to hit. And so that's kind of what we're seeing out there now. However, the nice thing about what we do is the fact that since we have discounted rates with so many vendors, some of those vendors are manufactured here in the U.S. So they won't get hit as hard, if at all, if we utilize the American manufacturers.
Now, Jeff, you mentioned the medical supplies. I want to talk more about that. But first, 3,400 vendors, 4 million products. Can you just give us a general idea of what some of these products are?
Sure. So, nice thing about what we do is, and I always tell everybody, if you're one of our travel members, if you buy it, it's most likely we have it at a discounted rate. So besides the medical arena, we also work with office supply distributors. We also work with food distributors. We work with hospitality and janitorial supplies, within the, for those tribes that have casinos and lodges, as well as business maintenance. So anything across the board we have, and then we also have a separate construction program as well, where we have vendors that we have negotiated pricing for supplies in the construction field. So we have a very wide breadth of suppliers that we work with.
Okay, now back to the medical supplies. These are essential goods we're talking about here, right? Supplies Sure. that hospitals and clinics that people's lives depend on. What prompted this move into this native pharmaceutical purchasing group?
Well, I believe the pharmaceutical purchasing group that you're referring to is a new program that we've set up. That's a pharmacy aggregation group. We found a couple things within the travel space is that, number one, tariffs are going to hit, and majority of the pharmacies or drugs are made, the active ingredients are made outside of the U.S. So everybody's going to get hit, whether it be travel or non-travel. But as a purchasing group, as an aggregated group, together as a consortium, we set up this travel pharmacy aggregation. We're actually rolling it out tomorrow with a webinar. And what that's going to do is bring that purchasing power of all the travel pharmacies as members, and we can negotiate with a single vendor to provide for all of our members. So that's gonna definitely help save some costs.
So I'm thinking of tribal hospitals, clinics, other healthcare providers across Indian country, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, huge purchase, probably maybe $1 billion, maybe, right? Purchases annually?
Collectively, yeah, it's obviously it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jeff, you started this company in 2017, and you've seen a lot. I mean, you were there during the pandemic. Now you're dealing with these tariffs, some of this uncertainty. What are your biggest concerns going forward, just about the general economy and just how healthy the U.S. economy is and what the future looks like?
Sure. I mean, obviously my concern is, we've already went through a round of uncertainty with COVID, and I don't have, it's no secret that everyone was affected, and the supply chain stream was very affected. So we finally got past that, and now, just as we're getting up off our knees, now we're going to get hit again with the tariffs. And there's uncertainty there now, and so it's almost like we can't catch our breath, with the uncertainty, and so that's probably not only my biggest angst, but also my tribal members as well.
And Jeff, let's say somebody's listening to the show right now, and maybe they own a business. Maybe they're involved with purchasing for a clinic or a hospital, and they're hearing about Native Purchasing Group and wondering what types of opportunities or benefits that the organization could offer them. Can you give us an idea of like how much money an organization might save working with Native Purchasing Group, or access to other products that they might not ordinarily be able to access?
Sure. So, we work under the guise of, my kind of go-to saying is, we're stronger together, right? So we kind of work under the guise as we work collectively as members. And I like to tell people we're kind of like a Native American Costco. It's all member driven. We have lots of members, and then we can negotiate better. So any of a potential member, or anyone looking for the first time, I mean, if you're depending on what segment of your business, medical, you can save up to maybe 20%. In the office supplies, you get anywhere from 10 to 15%. When you get into janitorial supplies, you can save up to 10%. Transportation, you can save even up to 70%. So depending on the market segment that you are purchasing for, we average across the board anywhere from 15 to 20%.
Now, tariffs are nothing new. What we're seeing now, though, these massive tariffs just coming in and out of nowhere, that's what's so alarming. That's what has the whole economy on edge. But in the past, Jeff, can you point to any specific tariffs that have benefited the U.S. economy, or even specifically parts of Indian country?
Well, I think as I explained earlier, some of the tariffs that don't get hit so hard are the ones that are American manufactured. So when a lot of the like you're looking at a J&J brand, or you're looking at needles, within the market, that a lot of those are manufactured right here in the U.S. Even some glove manufacturers are made here right in the U.S. So those have benefited whenever tariffs got hit because they don't get hit as hard. I mean, their costs do go up because they order some from outside the country, but not as hard. So we were able, a lot of the suppliers or vendors and members benefit from the manufacturers right here in America.
Thanks, Jeff. Denise Hill, I want to bring you back into our conversation. And can you tell us a little bit about just what you're seeing with the overall economy in South Dakota, and especially there in Siston where you live? Are there any noticeable changes for other prices, for other products that people are purchasing there in your community?
The thing that I see too is food prices. Food prices have, we only have 2 grocery stores, well, soon to be 1 grocery store in town. And so the prices of food have gone up. And I was just sitting here thinking too that with this administration, the uncertainty of it, it's our cultural items are going to be affected too. I'm sitting here thinking about, I'm a star quilt maker, and I average about 10 yards of fabric, per quilt. And so a star quilt is used for so many different cultural activities and everything. We're all going to be affected one way or another, and we just have to adjust to it.
Right. Thanks, Denise. Larry Chavis, back to you. Let's talk a little bit about food prices, because when we think of tariffs, I don't think ordinarily we think of food. We think of more like manufactured goods. But can you tell us a little bit about how food prices can be impacted on tariffs, or impacted by tariffs, and also just a little bit more about the overall impact of tariffs on rural parts of the United States, like Siston, South Dakota, and other Native communities?
Sure. They're really through 2 paths or two ways to impact that they're impacted. One is we do import a fair amount of food from different places. So we import a lot of beef, and we import sugar. We import all kinds of commodities, rice from around the world. And then also farmers in the U.S. are impacted by a lot of the reciprocal tariffs. So now when we impose tariffs on other countries, farmers now here are seeing impacts, and they're having decreased sales, which is, when we look at the GDP growth that I mentioned before by state, economic growth, the two most impacted states were Nebraska and Iowa. Their economy shrank percent in the first quarter, and a lot of that is decreased demand for corn and other similar products on the world market.
Larry, so much of this, and the word I'll use to describe it is chaos right now with regard to when these tariffs, what the amounts are going to be. They change almost daily. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel here? Do you see a point where these policies are going to finally stabilize and business owners are going to really understand and be able to evaluate just what the road ahead looks like? Because we keep hearing this theme like, you can't plan, you can't make decisions, you can't build a business or run a business with so much uncertainty at stake.
Yeah, I think, we do see battles over the ability to impose tariffs or the rights of the president to impose tariffs, working their way in courts. And, I think we'll get some clarity eventually, but we know that, it can take a while for these cases to move their way through the court system, and they're going to wind up in the Supreme Court eventually. Maybe only then before we get real clarity. Though we have also seen, the president go back and forth, President Trump at times, on tariffs, giving carve-outs to different industries. The challenge for small businesses is they can't show up at the White House, any individual business, with a gift for the president, whereas we saw Apple recently give the president a gold and some kind of award. And that's harder for small businesses to get that kind of access.
Okay. But at the same time, these issues with tariffs, it's not just small businesses that are complaining and having issues. I mean, big corporate interests as well have a lot of issues and are upset with the president and some of these tariff issues as well, right?
Oh, so, yeah, this impact goes from this business to the small business. And we saw in the past how things go a halt. We couldn't going good across boundaries at all. And yeah, that's a smaller degree now. It's just that the tariffs have a similar impact. They're not shutting down everything altogether. They do slow things down.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Jeff, we've got about a minute before we have to wrap up. Can you offer our listeners any insights, any tips, or just any advice for how to live with these tariffs going forward?
Join Native Purchasing Group.
Okay.
It's the only thing I can do is kind of like a stock. I mean, if you're buying stock, you're just gonna have to be patient and let the chips fall where they may. And then just kind of decide from there, which direction you want to go in.
All right, we have reached the end of our hour, so we're going to have to wrap up this conversation now. But you're more than welcome to visit our website, nativeamericacalling.com, or go to our Facebook page, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Threads, any of our social media platforms. Like, post, share. Tell us what you liked about this show. Again, engage with us always here on Native America Calling. And big thanks to the guests who joined us today: Montana Senator Susan Weber, Dr. Larry Chavis, Jeff St. Louis, and Denise Hill. And please join us again tomorrow when we will look at how tribes are working to protect the water and water rights for the Colorado River. I'm Sean Spruce. You've been listening to the one, the only Native America Calling.
Skookdash.
For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods, tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Omnie.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
More than a museum, the Alaska Native Heritage Center represents all Alaska Native peoples in a living cultural center where the traditions, languages, and arts of Alaska Native peoples come to life through cultural programming and exhibitions. Life-size village sites, live performances, demonstrations, and dynamic exhibits are all just minutes from downtown Anchorage. Open 7 days a week, there is always something new to discover at the Alaska Native Heritage Center who support this show. More at alaskanative.net.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.